So I get a lot of requests for film, and sometimes I really have a hard time keeping it all straight. So I got a letter in the mail recently with a $100 bill saying, jokingly, to review the Amityville series, and I was like, for $100, I'm not going to take that as a joke. And I reviewed almost everything except for Dollhouse and the remake, which I meant to get to, but I wanted to do Dollhouse first, but I can't find the damn thing, so I'm waiting until I can see it to be able to review it, and then I'll get to the remake. But that being said, within that letter, as I remember it, so I could be completely crazier, but somebody asked me to do this movie, and I swear it was what was on that post-it note that came with a $100 bill. I know I'm not crazy. I later found out that it was from David B. that sent me the money. That I'm 100% sure on, and that it was the Amityville thing. But I swear this was the other film that they wanted me to cover. So here we go. If I'm completely crazy on that, if someone else requests, somebody requested, I swear it was in that note though. I'm like 99.9% sure. So if it wasn't you, then I want to give credit to whoever asked for this, but it was you. All right, so the Banshee chapter. This is a movie I saw probably right when it came out years ago. And I wasn't really big on it at the time. I'm not really exactly sure what it was, but this time I went in, and it's currently on Tubi. If you don't have Tubi, you should definitely get it. It's a free app that plays movies legally, and all you have to do is sit through very little commercials. I mean, very little. There was probably 5 commercial breaks in this, and each one of them only played one commercial that was like 20 or 30 seconds long. It was actually kind of nice because I got up and I would get like a water or something, and I'd come back and it'd be over, and boom, I'd be right back into the film. So an unbelievable app with a loaded section for the horror, cheap action of the 80s, stuff like that. You like that kind of stuff, get Tubi. Anyways, so on this rewatch, I watched this with the mother of my children's nephew, so shout out to him. And, you know, genuinely, both of us were pretty creeped out throughout the movie. I felt that the atmosphere and the eeriness of the film was absolutely fantastic. I was really impressed with how creepy this movie felt throughout. That all being said, while that is an achievement, I think that is really, really good filmmaking to be able to pull that off. I think that's the hardest thing to pull off when you make a horror movie, is to be effectively creepy, eerie, and build atmosphere that you retain throughout an entire film. So, a total A in that area. The rest of it, as far as like a story goes, I felt like it was kind of blah for me. I liked the ideas behind it, and there was some really cool stuff going on there. But when it came to just kind of how it all wrapped up, and I just wasn't as engaged in the story as I feel like I could have been with the way the story's set up. Not bad. Still pretty good, I have to say. But I feel like, just compare it to the atmosphere that it creates. If this would have landed the story, if it would have made it more interesting, more gripping, this could have been absolutely amazing. Like, this movie had potential to be one of the best films of the decade in the horror genre. But just, I wasn't really drawn in to the story that much. I didn't really care about the characters that much. And that did hurt the film overall for me. So this film really deals with the drug DMT. Yes, of course, now that's been popularized by the Joe Rogan podcast. And we get this real footage in the opening, like actual real footage, not just, because a lot of people cite this as a found footage movie. And while there is found footage in it, the movie is primarily like a normal film, and then there are some found footage elements within it. But it has like actual footage in it in the opening from, I think, like Bill Clinton is in there, and some other political figures or you know, news anchors or something. But I feel like that adds some validity to the movie, just starting off with that footage that actually plays into the storyline of kind of admitting that there was experimentation used. And when you hear it from a president of the United States, especially one that I grew up around, I actually know this president, so it makes it feel like it, you know, it hits a little closer to home, because I'm like, oh, Bill Clinton, of course I remember him. I don't know, it did add a level of authenticity to the film. And then, yeah, we got the kid who takes the drug, which I've never had any interest in drugs. They're just not anything. Like, they, probably because I grew up around them so heavily and how much they ruined my life around me. That's why I get so annoyed when people accuse me of being on cocaine or whatever drugs they want to throw at me. I'm like, dude, you have no idea who you're talking to. Like, I would never, ever, ever take any drugs. It's so against everything that I am about. I don't give a fuck what people do. People could, you know, do cocaine all day, shoot up heroin. That's their body. They do whatever the heck they want. I don't really care. But for myself, absolutely not. But watching this guy like down a shot glass of God knows what, and it goes horribly wrong, of course. Now, we've seen other movies in the past where people do this, and it's a really funny moment, like something like in Wolf of Wall Street, when he takes those drugs and then he realizes, like, because they're so old, it takes so long for them to kick in, he doesn't think anything's gonna happen, and then boom, he's like literally crawling himself downstairs. That's such a funny sequence. But in this movie, it's played for horror. And of course, spoilers for the film, obviously. I did like the reveal that the DMT really just made the person who took it kind of a conduit. That it opened up their brain to receive this signal that was being sent out. And I love the idea of the shortwave radio signals that are out there, because that's something that always fascinates me, is that where you're sitting right now, where I'm sitting right now, there's so many different wavelengths running past you at all times. You know, you got your cell phone in your pocket, which is constantly emitting a frequency that picked up when a text message is sent to you. You've got radio waves. I mean, you go to your radio right now and you turn it on, you turn the dial, and it'll pick up all these different radio stations. You can get on CB, you can get on all these different kind of communication devices, ham radios, you know, all that stuff. And you can pick up all these signals, and you're like, these are all floating around me right now. Like, they're out here right now. You can't see them, obviously, but they're all out here, just being broadcast everywhere. Like, millions of things are around you, and it's a mind trip. It doesn't make any logical sense to your brain when you think about these communication rays that are just moving all around you in whatever way they do. It's always tripped out my mind. And so these guys trip out, and it actually opens up their mind to a specific frequency, which is, as I said, great setups to this. It's just, I don't think I'm going to take away from it's really, the concept is good. The atmosphere, the eeriness is good. The characters are kind of lame. You've got Ted Levine in here, essentially playing Hunter S. Thompson. You know, the dude who influenced the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas with Johnny Depp, one of my favorite comedies of all time, Benicio del Toro, Tobey Maguire, great movie. If you haven't seen it, you gotta see that movie. It's not for everybody, but shit, man, such a funny ass movie to me, anyway. But yeah, in this movie, it's like he's so clearly Hunter S. Thompson. And, you know, I love Ted Levine, of course. I mean, we're talking Buffalo Bill and whatnot, but he's okay in this. He's fine. I like him, but I don't love him. The girl that comes in, they're trying to set up this kind of like one that got away, lost romance narrative with them, but they don't really drive it home enough. There's a little flashbacks, but I feel like we should have had sequences where she like watched a video of them interacting with one another to actually see some kind of connection. Just a glance at one another and like a close moment where he could have kissed her. And this guy's really geeky, kind of goofy dude, and she's really attractive, like super attractive. And so for this movie to kind of be like more of her pining over him as the one that got away, felt kind of odd to me, because it would usually be the other way around. You know, the dorky geeky guy is like, oh my god, what was I doing? I probably could have got the hot chick and I never pulled the trigger. What the hell's wrong with me? You know, and it's just, I don't know, I had some believability issues that this gorgeous woman, not that gorgeous women or anybody can't have their feelings for who they, I've seen plenty of odd couples, for what I would consider odd. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, so she might think he's the hottest guy on earth, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know. And when it comes to film, I do struggle sometimes if these characters are set up in that way, where I'm like, wow, she's, you know, quote unquote, way out of his league, and she's the one chasing after him. But that all being said, now personality is everything, really, when it comes down to it, in my opinion. And so if I would have been able to see an interaction between them, more so than little quick quips and flashbacks of them hugging up on each other and then getting close to a kiss and this idiot not pulling the trigger for some reason. Maybe he was just like, this chick's out of my league. Why would I do that? That would be suicide. It would ruin our friendship and whatnot. But yeah, I had some believability issues there. The girl herself, while very attractive and not a bad actress by any means, but the character just didn't draw me in or do much for me at all. It doesn't really set up the character to be all that likable, empathetic, or relatable. So that's, and she's the main character of the film. If you don't relate, if you don't have any interest in the main character, that's going to drastically hurt your film, and that's one of the big problems here. And all the other characters that come in the film, don't really care about them either. Even Ted Levine, who's kind of got an established likability to him from previous efforts, previous films, I found myself to be like, okay, he's doing a Hunter S. Thompson, and the character has some energy to him, so it seems fine, it seems kind of fun, but at the same time, it's just not really, it's not really doing a ton for me. And then other characters, I mean, every other character in the movie is very secondary, whether it's the radio guy or the other girl that's at Levine's house, or you know, the dude in the beginning who takes the drug, or some of the scientists or some of the patients within it. But man, some of those patient sequences where they like turn off the lights and then they like flash in, they get pulled out of the frame, and then it had some Grave Encounter type moments in it where the faces were like, you know, the Grave Encounter's faces are a little more distorted with CGI. I still love those as well, and these were pretty good. So I did like that. It's really just style over substance, and it shouldn't be, because there is a substance in this which should have had substance. Truly, like, I feel like they could have taken this, built characters better around it, continue, you know, kept the atmosphere, and man, this could have been great. I feel like that's I am being redundant, but it's frustrating, I guess, is why I'm being repetitive with it. It's just like I'm trying to drive the point home, like, fuck, man, like this should be so much greater than it is. But from an atmospheric standpoint, I can still say this is worth the watch. I think this is a creepy ass movie. But if I'm going to sit down and actually discuss what's going, because what can I really say much more than, wow, you know, the atmosphere was great, the creep factor was great, there was some good scares. That only leaves me like 10 seconds of time to talk. It's hard to talk about that and then just kind of going in detail about scares. outside of something like that, which is only going to take up a few minutes of time, then you got to get into the story. And I don't really have a lot to say about the story. So it is a shame in that way. The driving out into the middle of the nowhere, listening to the radio, that guy getting the radio signal, talking about the radio signals. I thought that was all really well done, but as I said, it's more like effectively creepy than plot driven. So I'm just kind of like, okay, that's really cool, and it's a good setup for creepiness, but it doesn't really do anything for me as far as like engaging me in the characters or pushing this narrative forward in an intriguing way outside of the creepiness, as I said. And then yeah, it turns your brain into a receiver. And oh, I love the sequence where she's looking at the footage on the thing, and she's like she sees the girl kind of crawl into the corner, and then she realizes that was 8 minutes ago. Fucking eerie, man, and creepy, and just so tense when she's like slowly walking towards the stairs. Actually, for me, that's the horror. Like, that's always been the scare for me, is the lead up to the scare. That stuff, the tension of her walking to the stairs and what will happen, is always the scary thing to me. When the hand comes out and grabs her leg, yes, it's like that build up, that climax, but I actually prefer the walk to the stairs other than, over the hand grabbing. So the actual scare itself isn't as scary as the build up to a scare. The tension of scare is scary. I know somebody, I know a lot of people are with me on that. The containment chamber, when she finds that thing and the little face comes poking out, and then she like breaks it and throws like gas in there and blows it up from the inside. It was all right. Going to that place by themselves, just her walking through that house with a flashlight and being on the radio and all. Fuck that. No way, man. Absolutely no way. Yeah, I mean, we find out that Hunter S. Thompson, Tom, was the patient from before. It's like kind of a little twist there. It's not all that impactful because nothing really comes of it. It isn't like we find that out after Tom turned on her and killed her, and you know what I mean? Like, the reveal is kind of like, oh, he was part of that. Okay, whatever. He died. Like, it doesn't really matter. So, I don't know. It's a shame. But it's a good movie. It's worth the watch for sure. And the nephew really enjoyed it for that factor, but we literally didn't talk 1 second about anything with the story because just for me, there wasn't anything to talk about. All right, guys, there you go. So thank you to David B for sending me the money and being a supporter on the Patreon, and just giving out these films to review. I dig the requests, and there you go, buddy. So as I said, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. So there you go. Banshee chapter in the books. Adios.